information. Let's consider information as a unique commodity, okay? What you see here is a $40 million diamond ring, and only one person can have this diamond. But now consider information, okay? I can give you information and still also have the information myself. So information is a commodity where its value expands through sharing the information. So with this in mind, please be sure and share all the materials as well as the presentation as you deem appropriate, because we want to expand on this information that we're going to share today. We're going to talk today about excellence. What is excellence? We're going to look at some recent research findings. As Victoria mentioned, I'm a participant in a research study concerning the human mind, and I'll be showing you that more here in a few minutes. We're going to look at process models for business analysis, and we're going to take a very close look at some core techniques for these process models. We're going to skip the polling questions today, but let's talk a little bit about excellence, okay? What is excellence? Well, when I got ready to put this presentation together, I decided, you know what, I better figure out what excellence is. How do we define excellence? So I looked in Wikipedia, and I found out that according to Wikipedia, excellence is a continuously moving target. So let me just illustrate this very quickly. Let's say, for example, that I want to tell somebody across the room what time it is. So I look at my watch and I say, you know, it's 10 past 10. That's the time, by the way, that Abraham Lincoln was shot. And anytime you see a watch or any timepiece in an advertisement, it's actually 10:08. It's always at 10:08 because that's the time that Abraham Lincoln was shot. Well, anyway, the thing is, by the time the person on the other end of the room hears me tell them what time it is, their brain processes that information, and then they perceive what time it is. The time has actually changed. So as much as I want to, I cannot tell somebody what time it is because the time is always changing. And that's exactly what excellence is. We can approach excellence and we can become very close to excellence, but we can never totally land on excellence because, as it's defined, it is a continuously moving target. And we're going to look at that today, and we're going to look at how the business analyst can capture that and can impart excellence to their organization. And of course, when their organization is about excellence, that makes society about excellence, right? So the business analyst has a very important role in imparting excellence to everything that they do. What is a business analysis? Let's look at two definitions. Okay, first of all, from the IIBA, it's the practice of enabling change, okay, by defining needs and recommending solutions. And the PMI says it's the set of activities performed to identify business needs, recommend solutions, and elicit, document, and manage the requirements, okay? So requirements change in this excellence mode, and the business analyst enables that change. So when exactly does a business analyst define excellence? Well, now and always. So let's look at a survey here that IBM and Xerox did. It's actually a little bit of a study they did, and this was a few years back, about 8 years ago. They did a study that shows the effect of information overload on human thinking processes. And what they found is that 28% of a typical workday is wasted by interruptions that are caused by unnecessary information. They found that about 53% of people believe that less than half of the information they receive is useful. And 42% of the people use the wrong information at least once a week. Now, let me illustrate this to you with a real world example. I work for the city of Dallas, Texas, a large municipality in the United States of America, deep in the heart of Texas. We have two major airports here. One is near downtown Dallas, and it's called Dallas Love Field. It's the home to Southwest Airlines. The other airport is Dallas Fort Worth International Airport, and it's about 30 miles to the west of Love Field. It's where American Airlines headquarters at. Well, In part of my analysis at Love Field, as working there, learning about airport operations at Love Field and analyzing various aspects of the operation, I learned that approximately 3 people every single day of the year think that they are at the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport when they're actually at Love Field. Now, that goes right along with what IBM and Xerox found in their study, that about 42% of the people use the wrong information at least once a week. These people, about 3 people a day on average, don't even know what airport they're in. Now, let's look at another study. This is a Gallup analysis that's been done for about the past 12 years, and it looks at the engagement of workers in the workforce. And prior to 2020, for about the decade, from about 2010 to about 2020, they found that workers were becoming more and more disengaged with their work. They found that 67% of the workforce is disengaged in their jobs, and only 18% of the workforce is actively disengaged working against the organization, okay? 18% of the workforce actively disengaged working against the organization, creating a toxic environment. And there are lots of seminars nowadays on the toxic environments and how we work within a toxic environment. So we have to believe that this has got to be somewhat accurate based on a Gallup analysis. And so this shows that only 15% of the workforce is actually engaged in their jobs. Now, when the pandemic came in 2019, 2020, and the first part of 2021, we found, interestingly enough, and we're going to talk about this more in just a moment, that engagement started rising slightly during the virus, okay? During the societal and work changes, people actually started becoming more engaged with their work. Now, interestingly enough, in the second half of 2021, we found that the engagement started dropping off slightly. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what the survey shows when it comes out in February of next year concerning engagement this year. I suspect with more people going into the office that the engagement may even continue dropping off more, but we'll just have to wait and see about that. So this is the book that we're going to give away. This book, written by Daniel Goleman, maybe some of you have heard of him. He wrote a book called Focus. It was a New York Times bestseller, and it showcases how focusing contributes to excellence. He talks in this book about inner focus, outer focus, and other focus. Human beings have the ability to have all kinds of different focal points, even somewhat simultaneously. And we're going to talk about that more here in just a moment. But as we saw based on the research from IBM and Xerox, information overload causes us to lose our focus, right? And of course, then lose our excellence. So let's take a look at this chart here. This is a chart that Daniel Goleman developed when he wrote his book. When he was writing his book, they did some research in the area of neurology, and they actually had a neurosurgeon participating in some of this research. And this neurosurgeon was doing a very complicated brain surgery. Okay, in fact, he was very reticent about whether to even do the surgery because he was concerned that he would lose his patient. Well, in the surgical suite, as he was doing the surgery, and this is a true story, as he was doing the surgery, some of the ceiling tiles started falling down off of the ceiling. Well, of course, as you can imagine, several of the other people in the surgical suite, the attending nurses and so forth, became very concerned when the ceiling tiles started falling off the ceiling. Interestingly enough, though, the neurosurgeon never noticed that this was going on. He was actually in what's called the flow state of mind. He was so focused on what he was doing with his surgery that he did not even know that the ceiling tiles were falling off of the ceiling. Now, this is interesting because this also happens particularly with people in the National Basketball Association, professional basketball players. They get into a flow state and all they see is the ball going through the basket. When they're hitting the three-pointers, they say that all they see is the ball going into the basket. They pay no attention to anything else going on around them. So the optimal place to be for our performance is in this flow state. We're not too bored or we're not too frazzled and stressed out either. We're just enjoying our work in this flow state. And that's the place where you want to be to impart excellence. I want to share with you another thing about this flow state, and that has to do with Thomas Edison in his laboratory. What Thomas Edison would do in his laboratory quite often was when he was working on a problem, he would sit in his chair and he would hold a lead ball in each hand, one in his left hand and one in his right hand while he was sitting in the chair. And he would write the problem down that he was trying to find an answer to on a piece of paper. And then he would just close his eyes and start to drift off into the subconscious state of sleep. And as he was drifting off, those balls would drop out of his hand, hit the floor, and wake him back up into a very conscious state of mind. He would then write down immediately on the paper what he was thinking about concerning the problem at hand. And he claimed that he was able to come up with the best solutions to his problems when he was in this transition state between a conscious state and a subconscious state. And this is where we find the flow state of mind is at. Okay, so let's have giveaway number one, Victoria. If you could read down the list now to whatever, I think it was number 27, but I don't remember. I know you do. We can give away this book from Daniel Goleman, okay?
All right, will do. Give me a second. Gautam Mecca.
Okay, Mecca, what we're going to need is your address so we can mail you this book, okay? So you can either email that to me or you can put it in the chat or get it to Victoria and she can get it to me, whatever works best for you. But we need your address so we can mail you this book, okay?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Congratulations. Yes, congratulations. Okay, so let's talk about how we look inside the human brain while it's actually working. This is a picture of a functional magnetic resonance imaging machine, okay? And what this machine does is it allows researchers to actually view thinking processes inside the human mind in real time. And as Victoria mentioned a little earlier, I'm actually a member of a research study that's going on for the next 10 years. And I get into one of these fMRIs about every 6 months, and they look inside my brain to see how my brain is working based on the things that I have been doing in the 6 months prior, how it changes my thought processes. This is very interesting and very important research to help us understand not only links to other electronic things that are being worked on now by companies like Facebook and et cetera and so forth, but also how human thinking processes work so that we can have better outcomes about lots of different things. So George Miller here was a professor at Harvard and Princeton universities back in the 1950s. And the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, that sends people to the moon and into outer space and so forth, wanted to find out what people could focus on simultaneously effectively. And this was way before the development of an fMRI machine, but they wanted to know this so that they didn't overload the astronauts with what things that they needed to do while they were navigating the rocket to the moon. So George Miller did a lot of research and he came up with the answer that human beings can simultaneously focus on about 7 subjects at one time, plus or minus 2, depending on the person. Some people maybe only 5 and some people up to 9. Well, like I said, that was before the fMRI machine came out. Now, here's Clara Moskowitz, and Clara did the same research in the fMRI machine for the astronauts, okay? And she found that humans can only focus on no more than 4 subjects at a time. Now think about this. If you're working and you're paying attention to 2 different email accounts and you're chatting with somebody, on your cell phone messaging, and you're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner, and you're wondering whose birthday it is tomorrow, you've already bypassed 4 subjects, and your mind can't effectively focus on more than 4 subjects. The science shows us that. We know that today. This lady, Caroline Treisman, she died a couple of years ago, but here she is with former President Obama receiving a Congressional Medal of Honor. And basically what she came up with was that what we focus on, what we choose to focus on, determines the conclusion that we arrive at. Now, let me demonstrate that here for you today. How many sticks are here? What's your conclusion? Where is your focus? Are there 3 sticks? Are there 4 sticks? Are there 5 sticks? Are there a different number of sticks? How about this? Is this cat going up the stairs or down the stairs? How about this logo? We've all seen the FedEx logo. Do you see the arrow between the E and the X, the white arrow pointing to the right between the E and the X? Maybe you do see that. Maybe you see that all the time when you look at this logo. But if you have never seen that arrow before, you will never be able to look at this logo the same way again without seeing the arrow, because your focus has now been altered in looking at this graphic. And just for drill, here's the Russian logo for FedEx, and notice the arrow here is going in the other direction. How about this? How many dots do you see here? Are the dots in one place, or are they moving? Are you able to count the number of dots on this picture? How about this symbol? In the UK and the United States, this means that you're okay typically. It has other meanings here in the United States that have just come about in the last couple of years. But in Brazil, this is very much an insult. Some of you may be familiar with Fabricio Laguna, the Brazilian BA. He was telling me just the other day that this is a major insult in Brazil. You never want to use this symbol. It means 0 in Russian, and in Japan, it means money. So again, it depends on your focus, right? How about this? Pick a card here. Just pick any card here. It doesn't matter which one you pick. Just get it in your mind. And on the next screen, that card now has disappeared. How about this? Is this a pound sign, a hashtag, a number sign, a tic-tac-toe square, or something else? Okay, so let's take a look at definitions one more time. Business analysis. What does a business analyst do? They enable change and they manage requirements, as we talked about a little bit earlier. What is a requirement? Okay, a requirement is a usable representation of a need, focusing, there's that word focusing, on understanding what kind of value can be delivered when the requirement is fulfilled. And of course, the PMI has a little bit different definition, the condition required to be present in a product to satisfy a contract or other specification. We're going to talk about several different things concerning Agile today. And I want to get a couple of definitions out of the way. Agile, we have predictive versus adaptive. Agile, of course, is more adaptive. Predictive applies more to what we call waterfall, right? Agile is very iterative. We expand on things as we go, and we progressively elaborate as we go. Okay? As I mentioned, waterfall, the requirements are determined up front, and Agile, requirements are determined ongoing as we capture that excellence. The Agile Manifesto was established a while back, but 2 key foundational things in the Agile Manifesto are respect and trust. And when you're working in Agile, always remember that humans are of utmost importance and show respect and show trust. One of the key Agile concepts is to fail early and fail often. It's okay to fail, right? Failure frequency actually lessens as we impart more and more excellence. We find that there is less and less failure because the excellence is becoming more and more ingrained in whatever it is that we're doing. As I mentioned, individuals and interactions in Agile are valued more than processes and tools, and relationships are absolutely vital. There are several different Agile methodologies. These are just some of them I've listed out here. Of course, the PMI is very interested these days in the discipline Agile delivery and Mark Lyons way of doing things, but there are lots of different flavors, if you will, of Agile. From the IIBA Agile extension to the BABOK, what is Agile business analysis? It's ensuring that the right information is available in the right level of detail and at the right time so that the right product can be built. Okay, let's talk about a couple of little definitions here. We've heard about RAD, probably a lot of us have. Requirements, analysis, and design definition. This is where we use incremental and iterative activities from the concept to the actual implementation of the solution. And requirements lifecycle management has to do with assessing, analyzing, and gaining consensus on those requirements changes as we impart excellence. Okay, so I'm going to go through these next slides fairly quickly. I just want to show again what being agile means. Where you see the red check mark is what's more important. People and interactions are more important than processes and tools. Working software is more important than comprehensive documentation. Or if you're not working on a software project, a working product is more important than the comprehensive documentation. Customer collaboration is more important than contract negotiation, and responding to that change, especially as we impart excellence, is more important than following a prescribed plan. Okay, so we're going to look now in a real world example at some core management techniques. And our next giveaway is going to be chocolates from an internationally famous chocolatier based out of Brussels, Belgium. We'll get into that here in just a minute. But one person is going to win that box of chocolates. And I'm looking forward to that because when they do, I'm going to also have a box of chocolates myself. But anyway, let's look at some of the core management techniques here. Needs assessment, management planning, elicitation, analysis, monitoring and controlling, solution evaluation, and closure. Okay, if you have your supplemental material with you, you may want to look at supplement material number 2 as we look at a real world example of innovating for excellence. Okay, now today I'm going to show you 2 process models for excellence. Okay, model number 1 here is the model that we're going to use in our real world example. Okay, these are a part of your handouts again. In this first model, please note the bidirectional arrows associated with the requirements management planning. Also note that requirements monitoring and controlling happens throughout all of the other processes, okay? So with excellence, as things happen iteratively and with progressive elaboration, excellence is continually added, which of course is the essence of excellence. Okay, now I'm trying to go to number 2 and my clicker quit working. So I'm not sure what happened here, but bear with me, we'll get there. Oh boy. I'm going to stop my share and then reshare. Maybe that's got something to do with it. Let's see. Well, okay, I'm not sure why, but my slide is not advancing. That is not a good thing at this point. Uh, okay, there we go. We did it that way. Okay, model number 2 here, and again, this is part of your supplemental material. In this model, the bidirectional arrows are everywhere throughout all the processes. So there's continuous refinement, continuously imparting excellence in an agile way. Now, today we are examining in detail, as I mentioned, model number 1. And in this examination, we are looking at how business analysis for excellence can impart value at a company such as Godiva. Okay, and by the way, this is not Godiva, this is Godiva. That is the way they pronounce it in Belgium, in case you're unaware. I was unaware until a couple of years ago. Anyway, they are an international chocolatier. And this is directly from Godiva's website, where they show that Agile is one of their 4 main core values. Being Agile, the little green circle there toward the bottom on the core values. Okay, so looking at the process model, the first process in the model is needs assessment. This is where the analyst employs techniques for determining goals, objectives, and opportunities for enhancing value. The current capabilities are discovered and a definition of a desired future state is established. Now, since we know that excellence is a continuously moving target, as we've shown earlier, we know that whatever is established as a desired future state will likely change at some point as excellence is continually pursued. For our example today, Godiva has a need for examining their distribution channel. And this is a real world example, folks. For many years, they have offered their chocolate products for sale at physical stores or retail outlets, particularly in the United States. However, in recent years, with the introduction of services, such as Amazon and the general societal changes, such as, the lockdown, their sales from these physical retail stores have been declining, while distribution channel complexity, cost, and reliability, okay, are concerning factors. So here are some of the techniques, all right, in needs assessment that we can use during the assessment of the Godiva distribution channel needs. The needs assessment. Simply for purposes of our example today, let's choose the benchmarking technique, okay? And so with the benchmarking technique, the business analyst looks at how other organizations are responding to the various challenges with their product distribution channels. Benchmarking identifies best practices, generates improvement ideas, and establishes an initial basis for measuring performance. And of course, your supplemental material provides an explanation of all of these different techniques, okay? The next process in the model is management planning, okay? And this is also known as requirements engineering, and we're going to talk just a little bit more about that here in just a minute, but this involves stakeholder analysis and engagement and developing the requirements management plan. Okay, now as a side note, this term, requirements engineering, is being seen with more and more regularity. And in fact, the International Standards Organization, the ISO, in conjunction with the International Electrotechnical Communication and the IEEE, has published Standard 29148 pertaining to requirements engineering. And really, if you don't have access to this and you're interested in what the International Standards Organization says business analysis is all about from a requirements engineering standpoint, I encourage you to pursue getting this standard and reading it. It's very, very interesting. And it's really all about business analysis for excellence. Because the business analyst that creates excellence engages in requirements engineering. Okay, so anyway, let's go back now to our management planning, okay? Here are some of the techniques in this, in the management planning, and again, your supplemental has further description of each one of these. And this is where the plan describes how requirements activities will be planned and managed iteratively and progressively elaborated. Again, note the bidirectional arrow here in the model, which shows the agile nature of requirements management planning. As input is received from requirements elicitation, analysis, and solution evaluation, then the requirements management plan is updated. Okay, the next process here in the model is elicitation. And this, of course, is where the reasons and the actual requirements for seizing an opportunity are identified. Okay, techniques for elicitation include facilitated workshops, focus groups, and observation, among the others that are shown here, right? So for our example, concerning Godiva and the Godiva product distribution channel, one of the techniques for this example would be interviews with stakeholders for identifying capabilities and functions associated with directly shipping the Godiva chocolate. This might include maintaining a certain temperature range during the shipping process to prevent the chocolates from melting, and of course, the associated functional requirements. For our example, focus groups with customers may also be beneficial. Perhaps decorative packaging is less important to customers or a subset of customers, which could result in manufacturing cost savings and more efficient shipping. Often, the result of focus groups is discovering or finding and learning things that are previously unknown, which of course then results in updating the requirements management planning. Okay, so the next process in the model is requirements analysis, where the information is examined and synthesized. Okay, so for example, clarifying and verifying and validating the information. Okay, now it's important to remember here, and always remember in your practice, of course, that documenting is a part of the communicating associated with verifying and validating. Is what the person said what you heard or what they really meant? Is the cat going up the stairs or down the stairs? Did they see the car going down the road to the west or to the east? Remember to verify and validate during requirements analysis, and a component of this, of course, is documenting. As progressive elaboration happens and you as the analyst are imparting excellence, things will and should change as a part of the verifying and validating process, because this is by its nature part of the refining process that results in excellence. And another point here, okay, on documenting, and that is that remember that documenting can include things other than the written word, right? Such as audio or video recording. In today's world, in the societal changes that we're experiencing, the written word is very quickly becoming extinct. Here are some of the analysis techniques, and again, each of these are further described in your supplemental material. And for purposes of our example, the Moscow technique can be assistive in establishing the packaging requirements and the priorities for that packaging for the Godiva product. For example, maybe a Godiva truffle requires more packaging and cushion than a Godiva hard chocolate. Monitoring and controlling means iteratively managing and monitoring requirements change. Now, the important aspect to remember here is to be sure and keep the requirements within the scope of the analysis at hand, right? Okay, so for in our example, we are concerned with the distribution channels and how the products can be more effectively distributed to customers. So in the event a suggestion is made for offering a new Godiva product line, maybe offering a fresh lobster, for example, this would be outside the scope of the initiative, okay, which is focused on product distribution only. So as a part of monitoring and controlling, the analyst needs to keep the initiative within the realm of its focus. And as we saw earlier, losing focus is one of the easiest and quickest ways that you can lose excellence. Techniques for monitoring and controlling include change control boards, dependency analysis, impact analysis, and traceability matrices. And all of these, of course, are part of your handouts. For example, a traceability matrix can be implemented tracing, okay, or linking requirements from their origin to the deliverables that actually satisfy the requirements. Of course, and this is where we get into a lot of testing sometimes, right? And that, of course, leads us to the next process, solution evaluation, where we assess and test whether the solution delivers the desired value. Was the right thing done? Was the right thing done correctly? And remember, you want to do that validation at the end of every iteration. Techniques with solution evaluation include examination where testing and demonstration is done. The Delphi technique is one solution evaluation technique where an anonymous review of the distribution channel and its processes is done. For example, several Delphi reviewers of the distribution channel could be done to test for the desired effectiveness and determine where a new needs are surfacing. Apply one or more of the needs assessment techniques. By the way, it is a lot of fun to do solution evaluation for Godiva chocolates. So we have been through each of the processes for Model 1 with our example here looking at the Godiva distribution channel. One more process though that's important, okay? And that is closure. And the model doesn't list closure because with closure, the Agile analysis itself is actually considered to be done, okay? Now it's important to note though that with Agile itself, when something is done is actually a matter of somewhat of a debate, okay? And we know that since excellence is a continuously moving target, done can be elusive. So you see why closure is actually omitted from the model here. Maybe an extended pause is a preferable term to closure, okay? But anyway, nonetheless, closure is important, right? That's how we learn things. We learn from our experiences, right? We learn how we can impart the excellence better on the next iteration. In our example, let's assume that that the Godiva has decided that their Agile analysis of the distribution channel is adequate and they're done, okay? It's important for the analyst to prepare a lessons learned and support any transition of the Agile analysis or the results of that analysis into the actual production. And the techniques for closure here, of course, include retrospectives, and it's possible that the Agile analysis is paused. Okay, however, retrospectives to include what worked and what didn't and why or why not impart excellence to the next Agile iteration, right? So in conclusion, I want to show you if we were to take this raw diamond over here on the left-hand side of the screen and turn it into a diamond. This is an actual De Beers $40 million diamond here. Where does the project manager do their work and where does the BA do their work? Well, the BA gets involved based on our process models that we just looked at way back at the concept stage at the beginning before the rock is ever even pulled out of the ground. The PM is involved where you see the two white arrows just in the actual project of making that diamond, okay? And I'm going to be giving another talk through the IIBA actually in June, okay? Where we're going to talk about in more detail the differences between what a PM does and what a BA does. And this is sort of just maybe a little bit of an advertisement, if you will, for that discussion. I encourage you, if you can, to be a part of that discussion in June. One of the things that I'm finding as I go around the world, literally speaking about business analysis, is that project managers oftentimes don't understand where their job ends and where it begins, and where what the BA does and doesn't do. But see, based on this diagram here, based on this photo of making this diamond, the BA is involved throughout. The PM is only involved on the actual temporary endeavor, the project, okay? The BA is always imparting that excellence, always finding out what can we do next? How do we refine things? How do we make things better and impart excellence the next time? Okay, now my screen is closed, is stuck again, and I'm not sure why. But we are basically at the end, so if that's okay, I'll see if I can, let's see if I can get it unstuck again. Here we are, the conclusion. Okay, so we've talked about excellence. We've talked about definitions and models. You have all this material to take with you and use in your practice. Please do so. And as we talked at the beginning, please share the information. We talked about core techniques. So now, Victoria, if we could give away the chocolates, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I think everybody wants the chocolates, right?
Absolutely.
So I was looking at the participants and I was seeing a Jackie N. Looks like she's at number 32. Jackie, are you?
I am here. Thank you. I look forward to the
Congratulations,
chocolates.
Jackie. Yes, congratulations. If you would somehow get us your address, you can either email it to me or give it to Victoria or put it in the chat so we can mail you the chocolates, okay?
Okay, I'll email my address to you. Thank you, Trent.
Okay, you bet. You're welcome. And thank you all. Now is the time, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, let's talk about it. How do you want to handle this, Victoria? You want people to just unmute themselves and ask, or type something in the chat, or what?
They can do either one.
Okay,
I think as long as we don't have too many people asking at the same time, I think it'll be fine. If we run into problems, we can ask them to throw it in the chat, but let's try it either way, whatever anybody's comfortable with.
okay. Anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns?
Where is the supplemental material?
Victoria, can you help him with that? I know it. I saw it on the website for the conference, and also if you want to send me an email, I'll be happy to send it to you too.
I saw the presentation. Was there more than the presentation?
Yes, there are several handouts. There's like 4 or 5 PDF handouts that have all these techniques and everything in them. Evidently, is it not on the web? I didn't look to see if it was on the website, so maybe it's not there.
No,
You know,
all we see is the presentation. Same here.
Okay, so here's what we can do, Victoria. I can be sure and email that to you. I actually sent it over earlier. I don't know if maybe you didn't get it.
You know, I think someone else in my group got it, but I didn't get the copy of it. But yeah, and I'm trying to get it right now to see if I can provide the information as well.
Okay, maybe we can get it uploaded to that spot on the website. I really think that everyone will find that very helpful in your practice. And like I say, if you can't find it on the website, my email address, I can put it in the chat here, I guess. You're welcome to email me and I'll be happy to send it to you as well. Let me get my email in here. Okay. Okay, any other questions?
I do have one here. It seems like it's from Chris. Did the techniques you mentioned align with the Babcock?
Yes, yes, they do, as well as the Babcock, as well as the PMI version of the Babcock. Okay, but both of those documents, yes.
Very good.
Wow, this is really unusual. I usually have lots and lots of discussion at the end. I don't know
Lots of questions.
Yeah.
Go, since nobody else is asking right now, I'm just curious. Did you work for Godiva? Did you do requirements analysis for Godiva?
Yes, well, a little
Even
bit.
though I'm still pronouncing it wrong, right?
It's Godiva. Yeah, I learned
Yeah.
that when I started working for them, Godiva. But yes, I still am to a certain extent, and this is a very real thing for them, their distribution channel.
Hmm.
They found out, especially when the virus came, that, you know, the chocolates were sitting in stores and things and were just basically rotting on the shelf. And it was, you know, and so now they pretty much have gone to a model where they just send all of their product, you know, through shipping, through the mail and things like that. But yes, and I'm still doing, Paul, a little bit of analysis with them on particularly the international shipping. I actually had a presentation over for Dublin, Ireland earlier this year, and we gave away some chocolate there. And believe it or not, that was in January. And because they're still working they're still working on getting their distribution channel full of excellence. Okay. The person didn't even get their chocolates until last week. And so I sent them out in January and they didn't even get them until last week because for some reason Ireland was out of the mix some way. So anyway, yes, I'm still working with them, at least to a certain extent. Just FYI, I'm looking to work with De Beers next on making a $40 million diamond. That ought to be a lot of fun. I'm just joking about that, but anyway. I can't believe there's not any more questions. Don't be shy if you have a question. Huh?
Here's a couple in the chat. So I have Tim, do you ever receive pushback when promoting documentation while within Agile?
Yeah, the place where you get that pushback, I found anyway, in my experience, of course, my experience is just my experience, right, is with government operations, okay? Especially military contractors. They put a lot more value on documentation, okay, and for good reason. I see that happen in a lot of government operations more so. In fact, I gave this same talk up in Oklahoma at the University of Oklahoma, and there was a lady there that worked for the state of Oklahoma, and she just believed that there was absolutely no way they could ever get rid of all their documentation because of the government contracts, you know. So yes, there is some pushback to that, but I'll tell you this too. And I forgot, Victoria, what was the person's name that asked the question?
Tim C.
Tim. Okay, Tim. I'll tell you also, Tim, another thing that I've noticed, okay, is that it seems like the importance of the documentation as we go through history here, okay, every year that goes by, it becomes less and less important, okay. And I think part of that reason is because people are more tuned into watching YouTube videos, and you know that's kind of what our documentation is now. It's not so much the written word as much, but I see documentation becoming less important as we go forward than it has been historically. And so that's the answer, Tim, to that question. I hope I answered the question adequately. If not, speak up and we'll talk about it some more. But okay, you're welcome. You had another question, Victoria?
I do. Chris, how do we get our Agile development teams introduced to requirements engineering standards?
Okay, show them this material, Chris. I encourage you, share this material with them. Mention to them somebody's at my front door. I don't know if you heard the doorbell ring. They didn't know I was giving a presentation today, evidently. But anyway, share with them this material, okay? And share with them the fact that the International Standards Organization, the ISO and the IEEE has this standard, okay? And you can download this standard. I don't know whether you have to pay a small fee to get that standard or not. You may have to pay a small fee to get that standard, but share with them this and share with them how this imparts excellence to everything that they're doing. Okay, who doesn't, I mean, honestly, who doesn't want to have excellence in the things that they do, right? So explain to them, this is how you do that. And I think that's a good launching pad to get them to, let you experiment with doing this and show them that it actually does work. Ask them what time it is and tell them that they're not able to tell you what time it is because of excellence. Okay. Thank you, Chris, for that question.
Very good. I have another one. This is from an anonymous person. What kind of advice do you have for newer BAs and orgs that have goals of adopting an agile mindset, but there's very limited support and buy-in from tenured coworkers?
Oh, okay, Anonymous. Thank you for answering that question. I get this question almost every time I speak about this. Okay. And really, here's the thing, make it fun, first of all. Figure out ways to make it fun. Maybe bring some chocolates to the first few stand-ups or whatever, Unfortunately, the way that the human mind operates, okay, is that over a period of time, we learn about the way that things should be, and we practice making things that way. And historically, okay, people that are in upper management that have been, working in an organization for a long period of time, they subscribe to waterfall because that's all they've ever known. So that it is somewhat of a challenge, but I do think that by making it fun and making it sort of bite-sized, say, here's something I learned. Here's all the processes. I have all the material here. I'd like to try this on a small project or on a piece of a large project. And let me show you how this can work and how we can make things faster and better and impart more excellence to everything that we're doing. And then explain to them also that, if you're not in today's world, we talked at the very beginning about societal changes. In today's world, if you are not continuously adapting and continuously changing, you will go out of business because your competitor will be doing that. Your competitor will be figuring out ways to continuously change and adopt excellence. And if you're not also doing that, you will literally go out of business. Look at what we talked about today with Godiva. They found out that all of a sudden, hey, people are not going to the stores and buying our chocolates. We've got to figure out another way to connect with them, to sell them product. And it's working for them. And so you've got to continue to adapt. So that's my answer to Anonymous. I know it was a little bit of a long answer. Hopefully there were some valuable tips there that I gave you. Okay, anybody else? How are we doing on time, Victoria? We're about on to the end, aren't we? Or
Yeah, we got about 1 minute left, so we definitely have time for another question. If anybody would like to ping me one, I don't have any more left in the queue on the chat, but anybody wants to unmute their phone and ask a quick question?
Victoria, I may just mention here that the book we gave away from Daniel Goleman's also written some other books. One has to do with emotional intelligence. And if you're interested in that book, it's kind of along the same lines as what we're talking about here today to a certain extent. I recommend that book as well.
Very good. 2 great books to read. That'll be a good idea. All right. If there aren't any more questions, It's 11:49. I'm going to give you till 11:50.
Anybody's welcome to email me as any kind of questions you have to. I promise I will respond. Sometimes it may be a little bit of a delay by a few days. I get a lot of email, but I will respond to any questions that you may want to send later too.
Peggy says, thank you for a great presentation. Jackie N, thank you for a great presentation.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And thank you for the privilege of giving you this presentation today.
All right, it's 11:50. I think it's about ready time for lunch. We want to thank Trent Leopold for sharing his expertise so we can learn new and innovative ideas, methodologies, and solutions to succeed as BAs, sponsors, BAs. And you are our audience for participating. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, everyone.